Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. I appreciate your time. Got a little bit of slides. I actually have a demo that I'll pull up here in a little bit. Just to let you know a little bit about Secureworks. A peer of mine is here sitting in the back. We're happy to take any questions afterward or downstairs back at the booth. We'll be here for a while. A little bit about Secureworks. Secureworks has been doing security monitoring for about 20 years now. Right? It was about 4 years ago we actually... Oh, sorry. I can step a little bit closer as well. About 4 or 5 years ago, we came out with a new software program. It's cloud-native software to do the security monitoring. It's very much SIM-like, but it resides in the AWS cloud, where we send a lot of telemetry into it, taking advantage of a lot of different things. We've got a large counter-threat unit that does a lot of research, so we provide our threat intel, our own threat intel. You don't have to necessarily bring it into the tool. That threat intel is there and helps the tool work to find threat actors working, find that needle in a haystack, as well as it's in a publishable format so you can read through it. You know, I like to use an example of Sunburst, which was one of the ones that came out for the Exchange hack a couple of years ago. It's a little bit old, but anybody who really wants to geek out and understand what the threat actors were doing with Sunburst, all the detail that you could want is in there. If you have trouble sleeping and you just want something to read, you could read that too. Marketing slide, definitely being recognized for what the tool is capability of. It's marketed as an XDR tool. You see that on the slide there. It absolutely is an XDR. I really like to use the term next-gen SIM, though, because we're taking telemetry in from that many different resources, analyzing it, and then we have automation capabilities built right in so we can respond very quickly to the threats that we're seeing. And that's really what it's all about. Not only just finding the threats quickly, but then also being able to respond to those threats in a meaningful way to help an organization. So I'll show you, we have a lot of built-in playbooks. We're building out more playbooks all the time for the different integrations. I'll hit that briefly when I get to the demo portion of it. What I have here is just a high-level architecture. You see some partner products of ours there, because from getting telemetry into the tool, you know, we're very much an open technology. The idea behind this tool is use the tools that you have in place today. We'll bring the data from all those different tools into this single platform, do that monitoring, and then allow you to respond to it. So while we provide an EDR that can be deployed on any of your desktop, laptop servers, so if you're not using one of our partner tools, we do provide one at no cost. It comes with the subscription to the cloud-native software. But if you're using, you know, CrowdStrike, Carbon Black, Microsoft Defender, SentinelOne on your endpoint already, there's no reason to deploy another tool to your endpoints. We get the telemetry directly from those partner tools through an API integration. It gets sent into that cloud-native software, the Secureworks XDR cloud, from those endpoints that way. And then you see on the right the cloud environments, right? We really believe it's critical to get data from the cloud-native providers. In fact, last year, when we were analyzing where all of our alerts were coming from, only 40% of our alerts were actually coming from the endpoint anymore, because so much data is coming from the different cloud providers that are out there. It's really important to be looking at that O365, the AWS, Azure, Okta, CyberArk, right? There's a lot of intelligence coming from a lot of those different sources, being able to analyze that in conjunction with everything else that's going on within your environment. And again, those cloud pieces, it's all an API integration, so it's directly cloud. You go in, you authorize them to send that data to us, you let them know which domain you're coming from, and that goes directly into the cloud-native software. And then the final way that we get, it's a little bit more of that SIM-like way to get data into the tool, is with our on-prem data collector. So your firewalls, your switches, your routers, Active Directory servers that might be on-prem, or any other critical servers on-prem, we have a data collector that's listening on syslog, forwards that data into the environment. It's going to compress it and securely upload it in the cloud, again, so it can be analyzed by what's going on there. So that's how we get data into the tool. Then what do we do with it in there, right? And so there's an example I like to use. You know, I've heard people say Tesla's not a car company, it's a tech company that so happens to make cars. Sometimes when I look at CrowdStrike and SentinelOne, I think these are endpoint companies, but they're really a tech company that provides endpoint protection. I think if you think about our tool more of a tech company that so happens to provide a next-gen SIM type service, it's a good way of looking at it, because what we're really doing with the tech behind it is how are we analyzing all of that log information that we're receiving? How are we bubbling up the true threats, getting rid of the noise, so that what you're spending your time on is a real threat that needs to be looked at. And the way we're doing that, and where that tech is at, is in what we call our detectors. The first one I'll highlight is the hands-on keyboard one. This one actually has only been around for about 1.5 years now. We received a whole bunch of data back when the Kaseya ransomware incident happened on July 4th, about 1.5 years ago. We had some of our customers got hit by that, and so we got a lot of intelligence, helped them through that, learned a lot from that. But when our data scientists started analyzing the data that we had, we realized that threat actors were working on computers, typing in a command, for whether it was PowerShell or from the command prompt, analyzing the data that they received and then typing in another command, analyzing that data, typing in another command. There was a pattern that we could see. And so from that, they developed this hands-on keyboard that, again, we just look at all that data's coming in over time, right? It's not like the old SIM where you get the data in, you look at it one time and then you're done with it. We actually, hold on to it and look at it over time so we can analyze it with other data that's coming in so that we can begin to see that pattern and bubble it up. Another one that I like to call out is the stolen credentials one. Credit cards have been doing a long time, the impossible travel look. Well, we can apply that same type of technology and really minimize how many times we're looking at failed login attempts. If you talk to somebody that's been doing a lot of security monitoring, they just get tired of looking at all the false positives, right? It looked a little bit funny, some bad login attempts, what do I do with it? Well, this tool is taking in, the ASN information, the IP address information, looking for impossible travel. Where did the person log in from? Is it from their work computer? Is it from an odd source? Where do they normally log in from? What does that pattern look like? Analyzing that. So when we're bubbling up and saying, look, somebody's credentials are stolen, it's a much more efficacious view, right? Very few false positives are coming into that. And so you see some of the other ones on here. Some of the more recent detectors that were coming on are very specific towards Azure or AWS. Some of the new threats are, people getting access to virtual machines in your AWS environment and then trying to exfiltrate, copies of entire machines or things like that. And so, again, analyzing all that data, looking at it in a unique way, taking DNS information where DNS is important, taking authentication information where authentication is important, looking at that, analyzing it, running it through, and then bubbling up the event so that somebody can take a look at it. And so the way this works, too, is the Taegis platform is a cloud-native platform. We do offer 24/7 SOC monitoring on top of that, but it's not required. So if you have an organization that wants the software to help their SOC do it, or they're a smaller organization, they can't afford the 24/7 monitoring, the tool has capabilities to send an alert anytime a critical event happens or a high event happens. We actually have capability to automatically isolate a host on a critical event. So if it sees a critical event, it'll shut off all connectivity to the machine where that critical event happened until somebody has a chance to take a look at it. If you don't want it to happen automatically, that's all right. We can add tags to it. We can have our SOC service do it. You can do it from the panel. You don't have to pivot to SentinelOne. You don't have to pivot to Carbon Black or CrowdStrike to do that host isolation. You can do it from a couple of clicks of the mouse within this tool itself. Again, it's how can we respond quicker to what's going on. Adding IPs to blacklists, right? Still happens, still something we want to do. Do that from the tool itself. You need to add an IP to a blacklist. We have a template for that, right? A lot of playbooks that are out there being created to analyze and then respond to what's going on. This next slide I don't have tons of slides here, but just to highlight, again, all the different sources that we're taking data in from. We actually have the ability, so if there is a specific unique tool or a homegrown tool that you would like to get data sent into this from, we've got a custom parser now where you can write it out so your homegrown stuff can send the data into the format that the Taegis platform needs to be analyzed so that we can analyze that and, again, run that data through our detectors. Here I'm going to build this out a little bit, but again, it's just talking about the options, right? We've got the software itself. Just take that and you do all the SOC services on top of it. The standard Taegis Managed XDR service where our SOC team is taking advantage of that, looking at it, taking action on our customers' behalf where they're authorized to and where it's wanted. We also have the Taegis Enhanced XDR. So the Enhanced, this tool is doing threat hunting on a 24/7 basis. But we also recognize that, you know, when new threats arise, while we have a large group that's, you know, building ways to find those new threats, that takes a little bit of time, and there's information that's coming into the tool. So if you're using our managed services, we're performing a threat hunt in your environment on a monthly basis. We have some customers that say, hey, we really like that, but we want you to be constantly doing those threat hunts. And so when you get to our enhanced service, we actually have a threat hunter that's assigned that's on a regular, you know, weekly basis going through that, analyzing it, looking for specific information. We'll coordinate with those customers as to, you know, what are we looking for? You know, what are the threat hunts going to be at? From our regular service, you know, we kind of defined that when Log4j came out. The threat hunters were looking for different threats that might be trying to take advantage of Log4j. When there's a new threat or some new technique that we find threat actors using, that's what those threat hunts are going to be looking at. So just different ways that we offer our service. This next slide, there's a lot of words on here. What it's really is, what do we do different, right? So some of the things I'd like to call out is, we're one of the few tools out there that doesn't require you to deploy our agent to every one of your endpoints. So if you're using one of our partner products, you don't even have to deploy it to the endpoint because we take that data in. You can go between our SOC service or just using the tool and back and forth. So if you have a small group or you want to, I have a customer that used our managed service. That first year, they said, look, we don't need your managed service anymore. We got this. We've been using the tool. We know how it works. So they cut off the 24/7 SOC monitoring service, but they still have full access to the tool. All the data that's been brought into the tool over the last year is still there. They can analyze it and use it. But now they're taking advantage of that. The price is a little bit lower, but they're still using the software for the monitoring side. Encourage customers to do that. If you're using this tool, our SOC team and our customers have the exact same access to the data. There's no special secret sauce that our internal SOC monitoring teams that our customers don't see. You have full access to all of the data. We keep 12 months of data active within the tool. It's native and there's no additional cost for it. So data for the last 12 months is in there. It can be reported on, it can be analyzed. And we do go back. It's not just, again, that one time where data comes in and we just look at it once. You know, there can be multiple times where we'll be analyzing that data especially over that first month with some of the different detectors that are out there. Wide range of telemetry and ways to bring it in. And then, of course, we do have that threat intelligence that's coming from our counter threat unit. So you don't have to go out and buy another tool to get that threat intelligence brought in and then apply it. That's built into the tool and available right away. And then finally, the automation capabilities is, again, no additional cost, built in the ability to automate, use the templates that we have out there. My last slide, I won't leave it up very long, but it's just, we cover a plethora. There's a wide range. Manufacturing is one of our big customers right now, certainly in the education space and the financial space. So just some of those areas that we're helping out with people today. And I'm going to pivot now. There we go, came right up on the screen. This is our dashboard. You'll see right now, this is a demo environment, so there's lots of critical and high alerts in there just to provide some data for us and my peers when we're providing demos. But right here on the front page, the threat intelligence, and you can search back. The tool's only been out for about 4 years, but I've seen data, again, in here that you can search back, going back to 2014 or 2012. So it's not just the more recent data that's in there. I typed the Sunburst one in, but I won't necessarily take the full time to analyze that, but the data's in there and available. I like going to this alerts tab, and I'm just going to show the triage alerts, but what we see here, if I scroll down to the detector name, in this case there's 8 different detectors that are hit. You'll see the top one is the detector watch list. That's actually a more traditional way of looking at data where most of your SIMs are at, but when you start getting into some of the specific data, the detectors aren't going to hit as frequently, but it's going to almost always be a true positive when they do hit, just because of the nature of how they're looking, analyzing that data. For those of our customers where we're providing the SOC service, if I actually click on it, the investigations is going to show they'll create an investigation. Let me pivot actually to, when you go into the investigation, right, if we're notifying you, what our SOC has done is they created it where it's got the incident summary, the assets that were being used, the description of what's going on, all the detail there. But then if I trip over to the evidence tab, right, the different alerts that were involved, any different events. Now this one doesn't have a lot of events in it. Any searches that might have been completed by our SOC team, all that data is going to be in there and available. One of the newer features that we have is the timeline feature, where not only do we have that data, but we'll put it in a timeline format so you can see, all right, great, I found all this data that was added to it, but we can timestamp it and look at it, see how the threat actor worked through it, how they walked through that, when different pieces hit, so you can understand and really what you're trying to defend against, right? Advanced search capability, you know, if our SOC team is doing the service, you might not use the advanced search as much, but you can go in, analyze the data. You can create your own special rules. So if your organization has some unique data that you might have, we give you the ability to create your own rule to analyze the data that's coming in, bubble up those alerts that you want to have hit. Endpoint agents is just where we're kind of keeping track of all the agents. I'll pop one of these open here real quick and just show you how easy it is to isolate a machine. Really, if you're looking at a particular machine, you click on the actions and the isolate host is there. You'll see restore host is grayed out because it's not available right now. But again, it's literally that easy from within the tool to start isolating a machine to actually responding to a threat, depending upon how you have it built out and which pieces you're using. The integrations tab is just where we're keeping track of all the different integrations, the data sources. This is where anything that's going through a data collector will show up. We have a full list of them so you can see what's going on, the custom parsers. And the API, again, very simple to add API integrations to get data from some of these partner tools. You come in here, you add an API integration. The O365 one, I authorize it, right? Just come in there and provide the domain name, the credentials for it, and within 5 minutes we're going to have data flowing from Microsoft or some of the other providers within the tool so it can be analyzed. On the automations tab, I really just, from a demo perspective, I like to show the different templates that we have out there, just to show, again, the breadth of what we have. Now, these are templates, so there's going to have to be specific information from your organization that'll be added into this, but the documentation is very clear and precise to explain, hey, this is what data you need to provide. A lot of ticketing systems in here, so while we create the investigation and notify you, if you want to track that on your particular ticketing tool, all that data can be in there. From a ServiceNow perspective, you know, it's not just a one-way integration. We can send it to ServiceNow, and ServiceNow, we can receive information coming back. Not all the integrations are both ways, but those are some of the features that are new features that are being added to the tool on a regular basis. CyberChef, if you really wanted to get deep and analyze it, the downloads is where you can extract data from the tool. So if you want to look at some of the data in your own way, you can download it there. We also offer you a copy of the filters that we run from an IDS perspective. So if you're running Suricata or another type of device and you want to use our filters within your IDS platform, again, they're fully available to you. Reporting, you come in here, you can create a report. We've got canned reports that are coming out with it, and you can create other reports. So if you need to analyze activity for all your domain admins for the last month, and somebody needs to look at that on the 1st or the 2nd of every month, you can schedule a report. It gives you all the data so you can very quickly accomplish the different pieces that are there. And then finally in the tenant settings, which is where new users are added, again, this is where you can come in, you can put suppression rules to get rid of some data, or you can create your own custom rules. So I'll pause there. It looks like I got about 5 minutes left. Did anybody have any questions or anything that you might like a little bit more information on? All right, well, we've got flyers. If you want more information, if you'd like to just have a more one-on-one talk, we can talk that downstairs. You can be happy to reach out to us, and in the future we can talk a little bit more about it. But thank you for your time.